You are now listening to Clay Mohr, the American storyteller.
Being outdoors has always been a major part of my life, and the more I think about it, probably one of the most rewarding. I always consider myself very fortunate to be able to sit out here on my front porch and enjoy everything that nature has to offer. Heck, some people don't even have a front porch, let alone a house attached to it. I always make it a point to count my blessings and at the same time never be too busy or preoccupied to forget or be thankful for what we have. I know. Easier said than done, Clay. Anyway, sitting out here is kind of a nice way to be able to reflect from time to time and kind of catch your breath. Although these days, I find myself shaking my head more than I do anything else. After the day I had, if I don't watch it, I'll be seeing a chiropractor in the morning. Seems like anymore everything is backwards. Right is left, up is down, right is wrong. Everyone that knows me knows how I feel about complaining, as there are always others whose struggles are more numerous than ours. Conversely, after the day I just had, I think I'll go in the house and pour myself a glass of Yukon Jack and get like a chew bone. No, wait a minute. Make that 2 glasses of Yukon Jack. When I come back out, I'd like to share my day with you, if you don't mind. My adventure started early this morning. I knew I had a lot of running around to do as I was out of everything and had other business to take care of. Had kind of gotten behind on things. I sat down at the kitchen table, started to get my to-do list together. Got the box of Raisin Bran out with the quart of milk from the refrigerator. As I began eating it, I'm looking for the raisins. Well, I said, maybe I should have shaken the box a bit more. The box says 2 scoops of raisins in every box. Well, I guess the scoops just got smaller. Put raisins on a grocery list, Clay, I said to myself. Guess I'm just going to have to add extra raisins myself. I poured another cup of coffee and got the loaf of bread out to make toast. Did you ever notice when you try to take the twist tie off and you turn it to the left, like most people, it actually tightens it? You have to turn it to the right to open the loaf of bread. I used to think that they did that just to aggravate people, myself included. But I'm convinced that most of the people at the bakery must be left-handed. I mean, that's the only logical explanation I can come up with. I happen to think I better grab my suit and a couple of shirts and drop them off at the cleaners. I only wear the suit for weddings and funerals, but you just never know. The one cleaner I go to, the people are very nice. It's owned by an older Asian couple. They've been there for a long time. First time I went there, the lady yelled at me for wearing the shirts too many times before I brought them in to get cleaned. I grabbed everything and jumped in a truck. So I headed out, looked down at the dash. Well, better add gas to the list, I said. That's always an adventure. What is the price going to be today? As I got closer to the one gas station, I looked up at the sign and it didn't look too bad. So I went ahead and pulled in. The price at the pump turned out to be about 30 cents more. So I looked back up at the sign again more closely. Well, under the price on a large sign in little letters, it said with wash. As I looked under the big sign, the smaller signs listed the actual prices at the pump. Well, like the man says, you just have to pay attention. I looked over at the guy at the next pump and I kind of made a comment about these types of business practices. He chuckled and said back to me, I was at a place and asked the guy the price of the car wash. It was out of order. He went on to tell me that, he asked the people when are they going to get it fixed. He said they didn't even know as it had been broken for over a year. I shook my head. I told the guy, good luck and jumped back in the truck. Okay, next stop, the cleaners. As I pulled up to the cleaners, thought to myself, you can't miss this place. They have signs all over the building. Next day service, same price cleaners, and expert tailoring. I grabbed my clothes, proceeded to make my way inside, and of course, there was the Asian lady. As I came up to the counter, she was just finishing up with a customer and was as grumpy as ever. Here we go, I said to myself. I put my clothes on the counter and she started to go through them. When do you need these? She asked. I responded, well, I said, I'll be back this way on Wednesday. Being this was Monday, figured out, well, they'd give them plenty of time. No Friday, she said. Wait a minute, I replied. This is only Monday. What happened the next day? No Friday, she repeated. Okay. She told it up on the screen and said, you pay now. I looked at the ticket. One shirt was $4.95 and the other was $5.95. What happened to the same price? I asked her as I got a glimpse of her husband by one of the clothes racks. He's just shaking his head. This guy's going right to heaven, I said to myself. Man, no same price, she said. One shirt is light color, harder to clean. All right, I said, as I mumbled, next time I'll roll around in the mud before I bring him here. Anyways, I guess the extra $1 is worth the price of admission. Put the ticket in my pocket. As I turned to leave, she said, thank you for using same-day cleaners. No problem, I told her as I chuckled. I wonder if she even knows what that even means. It's all right. They do a nice job and kind of get a kick out of the old girl. Next stop, the drugstore. I walked into the drugstore. Oh, I almost forgot. They call them pharmacies now. And went back to the prescription counter. Had a pretty good line as usual. No matter what time of the day or night you get here, they're always busy. Seems like everyone's on something these days. As I was waiting in line, there was an older couple in front of me. The man was complaining to his wife. He was tired of taking all this medicine, especially the cholesterol medicine. He remarked, if I'm going to take this stuff, then I'm going to eat everything that I want. I'm 75 years old. His wife quickly chastised him, and I could tell he was getting a little irritated by it. He went on to say, it's not like they give you a prize for the lowest cholesterol number in the cemetery. He said next they'll be putting your number, on your tombstone. By this time it was getting harder for me to hold back the laughter. This old guy was something else. But he's right. Fortunately for me and him, his prescriptions were ready and they moved up to the register. The girl at the register asked him, "Are there any more questions for the pharmacist?" The old guy replied, "Yeah. How do I get off this poison?" Now the girl kind of smiled, as by this time the old guy's wife was really going off. They left, and I moved to the counter to pay for mine. Hopefully this guy's going to survive the ride home. Maybe I had to go out in the lot and check on the guy. I stepped up to the counter with a couple of other things I needed to pay for. "Hi, Mr. Mohr," she said. "Hi, Ellie," I replied and said, "Call me Clay, honey." I've known this young lady since she was a little girl. Her mother is a pharmacist there for many years, and she was going to school to be, a pharmacist also. You may not know this, but it takes an average of about 7 years of education to become one. Now that's dedication. "Are you here to pick up your vitamins?" she asked. "Yes," I said, and I got a couple other items if you don't mind. She found my prescription and commented, "Just to let you know, it's a 30-day supply, but we only had 20 left." I wasn't too happy as this was going to, be another trip, but I sure wasn't about to beat up this poor girl over it. You know, this is 2024. With all this supposedly technology, every place is either out of stuff or they just can't get it. I just don't understand it sometimes. I don't know what's worse, the fact that they're out of it or the lame excuses they give you why they are. I told Ellie that that's okay, honey. Maybe your mother will be here next time I come, and I always like seeing her. I wished her well as I walked to the exit, shaking my head. Next stop, the grocery store. I wonder what this one's going to bring. I rolled into the grocery store parking lot, parked my truck, went inside. Fresh Line Foods used to be a mom and pop grocery store. John had owned it. He had his whole family actually used to work there. Great success story. Came here with nothing, worked hard, built a wonderful business. He was a real asset to the community. Lord knows they don't make them like that anymore. He retired a few months ago and sold to some large company out east, I think. I'm sure I'm going to walk in there and see some changes. I remember when a new company first took over, all they kept saying was how everything was gonna stay the same and they weren't gonna change anything. Yeah, right. Well, let me tell you, folks, nobody buys something not to change it. I kind of crowded in here for a Monday. When I first walked in, I heard somebody say hi. I don't know if they were speaking to me or not, as no one even looked up at me. They just kept doing whatever, they were doing. That seems to be the new thing these days. As soon as somebody hears the door open, they just say hi like a robot. They don't even look up, let alone make any kind of eye contact. As far as I'm concerned, that's more of an insult than anything else. Anyway, I grabbed my list out of my shirt pocket, proceeded down the aisles. Didn't need a lot of stuff, but I grabbed the cart anyways. As I made my way down the aisles, I spotted a young mom with a couple of kids. The cart was pretty full as I walked by. I thought, man, I don't know how they do it these days, especially with these prices. God bless anyone with young children in today's world is all I got to say. I got a couple of boxes of raisins and some other things that I needed. As I crossed the last item off my list, I caught an elderly lady out of the corner of my eye trying to get something down from one of the top shelves. I walked over and got it for her. She thanked me and remarked, when John was here, he always had clerks walking around and they would help you. Now there's hardly anyone here. Yeah, I know, I remarked. Everyone you talk to, sure, Mrs. John. They weren't going to change anything, I thought to myself. I made my way to the checkout area. I turned the corner from the one aisle. Couldn't believe how long that the checkout line was. I wonder if they're short help today. As I got closer, I noticed they had changed things around. Well, there were 2 regular checkouts and 4 self-checkouts. So I'm trying to figure this all out. One of the 2 regular checkouts, there was only one operational. At the 4 self-checkouts, there are 3 people standing around just talking to each other as they watch people check themselves out. Where's the genius that had this brainstorm? Well, I don't know. I just don't get it. It seems to me that if I'm going to check myself out, I should get like 10% off my bill, as I'm obviously saving the store money by allowing them to scale back on their workforce. Now, you really have to think about this one for a minute, okay? The whole process is the same as if you hired a painting contractor to paint the outside of your house. Imagine the morning they showed up, you got your own paintbrush and went outside and said, "Good morning, fellas. Let me give you a hand." Well, let me tell you, if I was on that crew, the first thing I would do is call my boss and ask him, "Is this guy all right?" Well, this self-checkout is the same thing, if you ask me. I guess somebody must have said something, because one of the people that were over by the self-checkout doing nothing came over and opened the other remaining checkout. As the person opened the checkout, she announced to everyone, "I'll take the next person in line." Well, I looked, and the next person was the elderly lady that I had helped, who was with her cart right in front of me. She turned around and said to me, "How in the world am I supposed to get my cart over there with all these people behind me in line?" I said, "Don't worry about it, man. Just stay here. You're going to be next. She's almost done." I didn't have the heart to tell her that if they really cared about their customers, they would have already had someone there instead of the 3 of them standing around playing on their phones. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what happened next is so typical. The last person in line went right over to the newly opened checkout, got waited on right away, and as the rest of us are just shaking our heads, they're already walking out the door with their groceries. Just gotta wonder sometimes. By this time, the lady in front of me had finished paying for her groceries. She turned to me one last time and thanked me again. I told her I hope things get better here, but I'm sure she had her doubts. I started unloading my cart so the girl could, scan everything. She got to one of the box of raisins, kept running it over the scanner. It wouldn't beep. She then tried typing the SKU number in manually. It still wouldn't register. She then said, "I'm sorry, sir, but it seems that this is not in our system." I jokingly said, "I guess it's free, huh?" "Well, no, unfortunately, you won't be able to purchase these as she grabbed the other box of raisins. I looked at her and said, well, I guess the computer won't give me permission, huh? I could tell it just went right over her head. This is crazy. I thought that this was the main item that I originally came in for. If John was still here, there was no way I would be leaving the store without these, even if I had to come back later to pay him once, he figured it all out. Old school saying, never leave money on the table. Never. Anyway, I thanked the girl as I paid for everything, grabbed the bag, and proceeded out to the parking lot. Once again, you guessed it, shaking my head. I put my groceries in the truck and said out loud, that's it. Next stop, do drop in. Every time I pull in here, I can't help but rethink all the wonderful memories that I have here. It was originally called Doc and Joe, a Pelfrey's Lounge. It would have reminded you of a scaled down roadhouse. It was as it was depicted in the movie of the same name. It never failed to live up to its billing. I can remember spending several rowdy nights in there. Well, like in most cases, Doc and Joe got tired and decided to sell. They're going to retire down in East Texas somewhere, is what they told everybody, but I think local law enforcement in the city threatening not to renew their liquor license might have had just a little bit to do with it. Wasn't for sale very long when Dewey, a local guy and veteran, decided to buy it. He owned a fabricating shop a few towns over. There wasn't much that this guy couldn't weld or fabricate. Dewey got me out of more jams than I can remember. Well, everybody was happy when they found out, he being a local guy, was going to buy the joint. He changed the name right away to the Dewdrop Inn and decided to also serve food. Really did a nice job remodeling it, and the food's great. As I walked in and sat at the bar, Darlene yelled over to me from the other end of the bar, "How you doing, Clay Mohr? Having the usual?" "You bet," I hollered back. The smartest thing Dewey did was to keep the original bar. I swear this thing had to be as long as the lines in the airport at Christmas time. The second smartest thing he did was to keep Darlene on. She was a people's favorite at Doc and Joe's, and I really knew how to handle the unruly and rowdy customers. It was a decent little crowd as Darlene made her way down to where I was sitting. "How have you been, Clay?" she asked. "I can't complain," I responded. I was thinking about the insanity I had been experiencing the last several hours. Anyway, like I said, I can't stand complainers. There's only a few of us at the bar, but the dining area was starting to fill up, fast as it was that time of the day. One of the guys at the bar had been talking to Darlene and had mentioned he was having a pretty good month, whatever that meant, and wanted to buy all of us a drink. I said sure and raised my glass up as I thanked him. Funny thing, I heard the guy down to the left of me ask Darlene if he could have the money instead. "No, sorry," she said, "it doesn't work that way." It was no big deal, but everybody kind of got a kick out of it. Said to myself, I never heard that one before. "Can I have the money?" Kind of threw me for a loop. The more I thought about it, I wonder if this guy is sort of like down on his luck a little bit. Well, there's only one way to find out. I called Darlene over. I didn't look at the board when I came in. "What's the special tonight?" "Oh," she said, "the barbecue ribs." "All right," I said, "let me try it and get the guy over there," as I nodded over toward the guy that had asked for the money instead of the drink. Get him the same thing. She paused for a minute and said, well, what should I tell him? I said, you don't tell him anything. Just get him the same thing I'm getting. Okay, she said hesitantly. A little while thereafter, Darlene came out, the two orders, and sat one down in front of me and the other in front of my mysterious friend. He looked up at Darlene, pretty bewildered, and said, I didn't order this. She kind of looked down toward me and shrugged her shoulders. And it's on me, I said. Why don't you slide down here so we don't have to yell back and forth at each other? I motioned to Darlene to get us both another drink. He sat down next to me as Darlene moved his plate over for him. You could tell he was still a little surprised as I reached my hand out. Clay Mohr. He shook my hand and said, Donnie Crace. I said in return, glad to meet you. He looked down and said, it's not every day somebody buys me dinner. I said, don't worry about it. I actually wanted some company. We got to talking. I could tell he had a lot on his mind. I've found over the years that if you just let someone talk, sooner or later, they'll more or less tell you everything you want to know without actually having to pry it out of them. I had a guy tell me one of the greatest conversations he ever had consisted of him hardly saying a word. The key is simply listening. Well, I was right. I hate being right. My friend Donnie here had come up on some pretty hard times. About a year and a half before, his wife had gotten sick with pancreatic cancer. He told me, they had never had any kids, so she depended mostly on him. He had to take a lot of time off from work, and eventually he was let go from his job. She had always wanted to go to Disneyland, so he bit the bullet, so to speak, and took her there. Needless to say, there went most of his savings. Shortly thereafter, she passed. I listened as he told me that he had pretty much been drifting around after staying with friends and family, and my heart really started to go out to this guy, So I asked him what he did for a living when he was working. Truck driver, he said without hesitation. Well, how's your driving record? I asked him. Spotless, he said again without hesitation. He happened to think, I said, well, I've got a 6-wheel dump my guys just got going, and I'm looking to put it back on the road for a job I got coming up. You think you want to give it a try? Dad, I reached in my pocket, handing him one of my cards. He read it out loud. Clay Mohr Trucking and Excavating. He paused and said, are you offering me a job? Yeah, something like that, I said. This time he paused for a moment, looked up and said, I don't know what to say. I looked at him and said, just say you report to that address on Thursday morning. If I'm not there, see my girl in the office, Angie. She'll give you all the paperwork to fill out. I got up. We shook hands again. He thanked me again, and I told him I'll see you on Thursday sometime. I hollered goodbye to Darlene as I walked out the door. She replied back, don't be a stranger, Clay Mohr. It had been a long day, and I was anxious to get home as I had, been pretty busy and aggravated. And then I thought of Donnie. I had to laugh. Here I was getting all bent out of shape over being so-called inconvenienced. And then I meet up with somebody that has some real problems. Pretty ridiculous, I thought. I was glad I met up with Donnie. Circumstances like this can give you a real reality check. Anyway, something about the guy I really liked. I hope he shows up. But that's another story for another time, bringing the past to the present. I am Clay Mohr.